Hello everyone, my name is Jennifer and welcome to Best Kept Plans. Today's video is going to be a reading wrap up and recap for the first half of 2022. I have a bunch of prompts that I'm going to go through and pick the book that I've read so far this year that best pertains to that prompt. If you're interested in seeing that, please stick around. As I said in my introduction, this video is going to be a bit of like a recap and wrap up of all of the books that I've read so far in 2022. I recently watched a video from a Clockwork Reader. I think she put it out in June 2021, and she basically had a bunch of prompts and went through the books that she read so far that year that best pertained to them. And I thought that was a really great idea and a really fun thing to do. So I did write down the prompts. I went through my Archer and Olive B. Harris collab reading journal, found the books that I've read so far this year that best pertain to those prompts, and we're gonna go through them. There aren't a ton of prompts, but I really liked the ones that she went through. So let's get started. The first prompt was the best book that I have read so far this year. And one book definitely popped into my brain immediately. But thinking about it a little bit more, I was kind of going back and forth between two different books. And the book I ended up choosing is actually something that I recently read. I'm filming this towards the end of June 2022. It is going to post in June. And so I haven't actually talked about this book yet here on my channel because I read it at the beginning of the month and I haven't filmed my wrap up for June yet. So that book is Where the Crawdads Sing. I picked this up recently because I knew it was being made into a movie and I wanted to make sure I read the book before I saw the film. I had heard really great things about it. There's a lot of hype surrounding this book. I have a couple of colleagues that have read this book as well and really liked it. And so I was excited to read it. I was also a little hesitant and worried to read it because sometimes when things get really, really hyped, I feel like I end up being a little bit disappointed, and we'll touch on that again later in this video. But this book lived up to every bit of hype, like 100%. It is incredible. I loved it. I loved everything about it. I wish I could read it over again, like for the first time. It's so, so good. So this was definitely the best book I've read so far this year. Next, we have the best sequel that I've read so far this year. And actually, when I first saw the prompt, I was like, oh gosh, I think I've only read one sequel. And the sequel that came to my mind is definitely the one that I'm going to share with you all. And I'm looking for it in my pile of books here. It's definitely the one that I'm going to share with you all. It's definitely the one that I ended up picking. But when I was going through my reading journal, I realized that I actually read 3 different series so far this year. I read Heartstopper, and I've read the A Simple Wild, or The Simple Wild? Yeah, The Simple Wild series. Both of which I really enjoyed their sequels, but the one that I picked for this prompt was Good Girl, Bad Blood, which is the second book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. I loved this book. This was my favorite book of the series, and I gave it 4.5 stars, so I definitely felt like it deserved to be picked for this prompt. New release I haven't read yet. So this one I instantly knew the answer to, and that's because I've seen this book at the bookstore the last few times that I've gone, and I have wanted to get it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. It's definitely something that I want to read soon. It has a very summer-esque looking cover, and so I want to read it before the summer is over, and that is Something Wilder by Christina Lauren. I don't know what the book is about, but the cover's gorgeous and I really want to read it. The next prompt is my most anticipated release for the second half of 2022. And my pick for that is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I have read a few Taylor Jenkins Reid books, and for the most part, I've really enjoyed them. So I'm interested and excited to read more of her, and really interested in reading this new book when it comes out. The next prompt is my biggest disappointment so far this year, and I ended up picking 2 books for this. Going back to when I was talking about Where the Crawdads Sing, I mentioned how sometimes when there's a lot of hype surrounding a book, I don't know, you can end up getting let down or disappointed because it didn't really live up to what you were expecting. And I feel like that's why these 2 books are my biggest disappointments. They're not necessarily awful. They're not terrible. I don't hate them. I'm not mad that I read them. I just feel like there was a lot of hype surrounding them, and they did not live up to that. And those 2 books are The Spanish Love Deception and The Unhoneymooners. Now, I do want to say that I think I am part of the problem as to why I didn't like these books more. I read these books, I think I read both of them in February, and I was reading a lot of romance at that time. I had just kind of gotten into romance, and I was reading a lot of enemies to lovers, and I think this was like the 3rd and the 4th enemies to lovers that I read in a row. And so it could have just been that there was too much of that trope in my reading world at that time, and I was just kind of like over that trope. But I ended up giving both of these books 3.5 stars. I think kind of now looking back, I'd probably rate this one 3 stars and then maybe this one 3.5. You know, they weren't terrible. They just didn't live up to the hype. So many people said they were like 5-star reads, incredible, amazing, best romance, best book. And I was like, yeah, that's not how I feel about these. Biggest surprise. So my pick for biggest surprise, kind of relates to my pick for biggest disappointment. So I had read The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, and again, didn't love it, didn't love up to the hype for me. But very soon after that, I ended up picking up Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren, and I absolutely fell in love with that book. That is a 5-star read for me. I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's just so heartwarming and touching and sweet and romantic, and I loved everything about it. And I think because I didn't really enjoy The Unhoneymooners, I wasn't necessarily expecting to love in Other Words as much as I did, which is why it was a big surprise for me and a really good surprise for me. Favorite new author. So I'm I'm considering this an author that's new to me, not an author that like had their first book come out in 2022 and I've read it. And so for me, my favorite new author, I guess I would have to go with Christina Lauren, because I've read multiple of their books so far this year. I think I've read 4 Christina Lauren books, and I've liked the vast majority of them. So I only gave The Unhoneymooners 3.5 stars, but then Love and Other Words was a 5-star read for me. I read The Soulmate Equation next, which I gave 4 stars. And then just recently in the month of June, I read another one of their books, Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. And I ended up giving that 4 stars as well. So I've really enjoyed the majority of the books I've read by them, and because of that, they're my favorite author that's new to me. Newest fictional crush. So this one was kind of hard. I don't know that there's like one particular character that I've just been like, oh my gosh, he's perfect. I love him. You know, he's great. And so I kind of chose 3 that I thought were that I liked and kind of liked for similar reasons, to be honest. And so the first one of which is, let me find, because I've already talked about this book, Where the Crawdads Sing. Tate from Where the Crawdads Sing, that's definitely one. Nathan from The Cheat Sheet, and then Jonah from The Simple Wild. And the reason why I would pick these 3, again, similar reasons. I feel like beyond the romantic relationship that is happening with the main characters in their books, these 3 just have they genuinely care about the main character. And even when there's a tough time going on or a rough situation going on, they still care about that human being and want to support that human being. And I do really appreciate that. And so, yeah, that's why I guess I'd consider those my newest fictional crushes. Newest favorite character. I was really trying to kind of make sure I had a lot of diversity when I was like picking my responses to these different prompts. I didn't want to just have the same books over and over again. So I really did try to pick different books for everyone. But Where the Crawdads Sing is making another appearance. It's making its third appearance because Kaya is definitely my favorite character that I've read so far in 2022. I adore her. I love her. And I couldn't think of any character that I liked more than her. Next, we have the book that made me cry. And there's like a ton of books I could have picked for this one, but the one that really, I think, got to me, and honestly, I really wasn't expecting it to get to me, was Clara and the Sun. This is not a romance. This is just a fiction, and I really loved it. It was a 5-star read for me. I genuinely just thought it was an incredible book. I loved the main character. I loved the way it was told. And it really got me at the end. I ended up like ugly crying over this book. So this was the right choice for this prompt. Next, we have a book that made me happy. And my pick is I'm really happy, I should be, but excited about my pick for this book, and that's Why Not Me by Mindy Kaling. I am not a nonfiction reader. I don't look for nonfiction. I try to stay away from nonfiction, but something drew me to pick up this book, and I ended up reading it. I really liked it. I thought it would take me forever to get through. I thought it would be a DNF at some point, well, before I read it, I was worried it would be a DNF. And then I picked it up. I started it. I loved it. I read it in like 2 or 3 days. I thought it was so funny. And it just made me love Mindy Kaling even more. And I loved her anyways. And so this book made me really happy in an unexpected way. And then most beautiful book you've bought this year. And I actually have 3 covers that I want to share with you for this one. The first of which is One Italian Summer, and I literally only bought this book because of the cover. I thought the cover was gorgeous. I knew right away, this is the Amalfi Coast, this is Positano. I love Italy. This is my favorite area of Italy. It has a gorgeous like copper foil on it too. And I just thought this book cover was stunning, and it really is stunning, and I wish the book was a quarter as good as the cover is. The other 2 are books that I bought but I haven't read yet. Next is Circe. I definitely want to read Circe before the end of the year. I just think this cover is so gorgeous and also has like copper foil. I don't know why I'm so into copper foil right now, but I love this book. I think or the book cover, I should say. I think it's beautiful. And then the last one is something that I actually bought just recently. Again, I bought it because of the cover. I also thought the title was really good, but something about this cover like really stuck out to me. I just absolutely love the colors, and that's The Summer of Broken Rules. This is a young adult book. I haven't really read much young adult. I basically read like Heartstopper and the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, and I haven't read any other young adult recently. And so, but I was just so intrigued to pick this up because the cover is so beautiful. The last prompt is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? And I was trying to keep it short, so I only have a few books, one of which I already mentioned, Circe. But the other books that I really want to read before the end of the year, one of which is, I'm hoping to read this month still, is The Atlas 6. I've been talking about that one a lot, and I just haven't picked it up yet. Really hoping to get to it in June. Station 11, which I did pick up I think towards the end of April, and then ended up getting like 5 or 10 pages in and put it down because I got distracted with something else. And so I can't even make an opinion about the book yet because I literally was only like 5 or 10 pages in. So I definitely want to pick it up again and read it. The Remains of the Day, which is a book I picked up recently. And then I do want to make sure that I stay faithful to my Instagram challenge. If you've watched any of my other book videos, I talk about my Instagram challenge a lot. Basically, I went on Instagram and I just asked for book recommendations. And then I created a spread in my reading journal where every month I put one book that was recommended to me by someone on Instagram and I read that book. I have books all the way through October. I do need 2 more for November and December, so I will have to put the prompt up on IG again. But so far I've read The Silent Patient and Homegoing, both of which I gave 5 stars. And then for the month of June, I read Will. I did not give that 5 stars. For July, the book will be How to Walk Away. And then I have A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow, which I'm really looking forward to, The Stranger, and then The Whisper Man. So very interested in keeping up with this challenge. Lastly, I did want to just put up some honorable mentions. There are a bunch of books that I read this year that I didn't pick in these prompts, but I still wanted to mention because I really enjoyed them. And those books are Malibu Rising, which I gave 4.5 stars, The Hating Game, which is the first romance that I read, and I gave 5 stars too. The Song of Achilles, which I thought was incredible and was another 5-star read from me. The Quiz Quotient, another romance, a sweet romance. I love that romance. I also gave that book 5 stars. The Silent Patient, which I mentioned, and Homegoing, which I mentioned from my Instagram challenge. Ugly Love, which is a book by Colleen Hoover. It was my second Colleen Hoover book. I didn't really like my first one, so I was very pleasantly surprised by Ugly Love, and I gave it 5 stars. And then The Nightingale, which is actually the book that I was debating for the best book I've read so far this year. Where the Crawdad Sings was definitely the first thing that came to my head, and it won out, but The Nightingale is a very close second. It's a really great book. That is it. That's all the books we're talking about today. If you have any questions or comments about the books that I talked about in this video, or if you have any book recommendations for me, do not hesitate to put them down below. And as always, everyone, please be safe. Bye-bye.